veteran of the United States Army Air Corps.
Right.
Bill served in the Pacific. Bill was part of a C-47 crew, and he's agreed to talk a little bit about his World War II experiences. So, with that, I want to say good afternoon, Bill.
Thank you.
And let's talk about you. Let's talk about where you were born and growing up, and take us on through.
Okay, I was born in Waterbury, Connecticut, April 29th, 1924. I went to Henry S. Chase Grammar School, Crosby High School, from where I graduated in 1941. And I worked a year for my Uncle Art in a grocery store. And from there, I went down to Bluefield College in Bluefield, West Virginia, which is a division of Virginia Tech University. And I was there one semester, and we were coming home for Christmas. And I was talking to my buddies, and we're going. I said, where are you going? We're going to Roanoke. On the way home, we're going to enlist. Fine. I thought, well, my dad doesn't know anything about it, nor does my mom, but I'll go along with it because I knew eventually we were going to go anyway.
And how old were you then?
Oh, let's see, 18, 19, 20. 20.
Oh, so, and it's 40?
1942.
Okay.
December of 42.
Okay.
And I got home and I told my folks what I had done. And they weren't too happy about it, but as I explained to them, I'm going to go anyway. This way, enlisting, I can get the branch of service I want.
Your choice.
And I enlisted with the Air Corps, and when I was called to active duty in May of 43, sure enough, I was sent to basic training in Miami Beach. We were based at the Hotel Cadillac at 38th and Collins. And we had a drill instructor that was an ex-Marine DI. And boy, he was tough.
Remember his name?
I can't.
Okay.
No, but he was fair, but you know. And occasionally we'd get out of line a little bit, and all he says was, "Okay, fine. Tomorrow morning, get your field pack ready. We're gonna hike to the rifle range." Now that's way up at 98th and Collins, so up we go. And never did qualify with a rifle, and but with a .45, I was an expert marksman.
Okay.
How I did it, I still can't tell you. But no, Miami Beach was nice. Again, you still don't have any idea what the war is all about. And then from Miami, I was sent to Greensboro, North Carolina, for they were waiting to see where I was going to go, and I eventually went from Greensboro to Gulfport, Mississippi, to mechanic school, and we worked on C-47s. We worked on aircraft engines, electrical, to go through all of the things that could happen with an airplane, and they train you for that. And we were trained to tear an engine down. We were trained to find electrical problems, and just got a real good troubleshooting idea of what a C-47 engine was.
Okay.
And from there, I graduated from Gulfport, and they sent me to Camp McCall, North Carolina. And from there, I joined an active group. It wasn't a real squadron, but we helped to train the 82nd Airborne. The first time I ever went up in a C-47 loaded with paratroopers, rained like the dickens. Unfortunately, we lost a couple of aircraft that night, soldiers included, but from there I went to Bergstrom Field in Austin, Texas. There I picked up my flight crew. Now, the flight crew at that time consisted of pilot, co-pilot, radio operator. Now, my pilot was a Mormon fellow from Utah by the name of Junior Goodliff. My co-pilot was Harry Cohen from Chicago, and my radio operator was a fellow by the name of Schmidt, came from Pennsylvania.
Great memory. Okay.
So we trained, and on weekends you couldn't stay at Bergstrom. You had to get out of Bergstrom on cross-country trips. So I flew to San Francisco one weekend. Another weekend you flew to Minneapolis, and one weekend I got to fly to Hartford.
Oh, okay.
And I called my mom and dad, and they came up to see me.
So you're flying on a military aircraft?
Yeah, we're flying C-47s.
C-47.
Yeah,
So
but the first time I ever flew in a C-47 was down to Gulfport at mechanic school. One of the sergeant who, seems like he'd been in the Army for eons, took an old 47 and completely redid it with a bunch of guys, and and I flew in it.
Yeah.
Scared the daylights out of me the first time, but after that, then you get used to it, and then I enjoyed flying. At Bergstrom Field, we used to go down towards Brownsville, Texas, and do what they call shooting landings. In other words, you come in low, you land, keep right on going, pour the power to it, up you go. We had to do it. The radio operator had to learn. I had to do it.
You were
Co-pilot.
the controls doing that?
I had stick time.
Oh my goodness! Wow. Yeah.
And fortunately, the first time we ever landed one of those things, it was a grease job. In other words, you're in the air, the next minute you're on the ground. You don't even feel it.
Yeah.
And the fellow who was the pilot, Bill Murphy, and I believe he was from, I think he was from out in the Midwest somewhere, and he said, "Where'd you learn to fly?" I said, "This is pure luck, nothing else." And after let's see, where did I go from at Bergstrom, I got my wings, and I got corporal stripes. And there we went to Fort Wayne, Indiana. And from Fort Wayne, we were supposed to pick up brand new C-47s and take them where we thought was going to be in Europe. We had winter flying suits on and all that. Next thing we know, we're headed for Chicago. Put us on the troop train, and we ended up at Hamilton Field in San Francisco.
Okay.
And from there, they talked about flying to Hawaii, and that was knocked out. So they put us on an aircraft carrier that had aircraft all in the mold, like a plastic cover over the entire aircraft, and then and with no, they had the engines but no propellers. So we took that, and it took us, I don't know, something like 16 days or 17 days to hit Finch Haven, New Guinea. And here we are with winter flying suits on. I thought, good Lord, and it was hot.
Yeah, man.
I don't really remember how long I stayed at Finch Haven, but then we started on. I went up to Hollandia. The 33rd was there. I wasn't going to stay there. Then I went to Nadzab, and that was the redistribution place. And I was there maybe 2 weeks. Next thing I know, I'm on my way to Biak in the Netherlands, East Indies, and that's where I joined the 21st Squadron. And they were very happy to see us, believe me, because these poor guys had fought out of the Philippines all the way down through the areas down in New Guinea, at Leahy and Wakti, and down there was a couple of air bases near Port Moresby, and the 374th took part in paratroop operations at Leh, and that's where they started the road back to Tokyo. And when I got into the squadron, I was assigned on an aircraft, and it was a pretty good ship. And they wanted me to get used to it, and so I did. I worked on it when it was sitting on the ground, getting cleaned up on the inside, and checking out the instruments, and pre-flight 2 or 3 times a day. And how you do with a C-47, up at the top are the switches. You put the switch on, you set your throttle at half, put your mixture at full, holler out the window, clear right or clear left. You crank up the engines and run them for a while. Now, in the meantime, you think when you're sitting there, if you don't remember to put your feet on the brakes, you're going to go somewhere. And and that happened every morning. You always pre-flight it every morning, whether you were flying or not. And at one point, I flew for 44 straight days. I mean, which was fine. It didn't bother me at all. And we hauled everything. You name it, we hauled it. Engines, jeeps, gas tanks, engine parts, aircraft parts, everything, toilet paper, nurses, doctors, blood supplies and all of that, and whatever had to go, it went.
How long would your flights be? Where were you flying?
Oh, if we flew Biak to New Guinea, it was about 4 hours.
So you're in the air 4 hours to
Yeah.
deliver.
And then sometimes we'd get the mail run.
Yeah.
So you fly from Biak down to Finchhaven down to Leh, pick up the mail and start on back, and you'd leave Biak at say 6 o'clock in the morning. You might get home by midnight.
Yeah.
So that it made a long day, and then you always stop by operations and look at the board, and sure enough, my name was there, so I figured, well, okay. So, but it to me, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It never bothered me to know that, sure, I was how many thousands of miles away from home. I knew that the folks back home were safe, and there were areas over the entire period I was in the South Pacific, places I'd known even today I'd never see. Australia, Okinawa, Tokyo. So basically, I'm glad I went.
Absolutely.
It made a man out of me, and as they say, and I met some great guys, believe me. I can remember one guy, Kenny Van Winkle, came from Nebraska. He was a real character. He was one of our radio operators, and he was just a great guy. Stan Hoxie from Bemidji, Minnesota is another one. Come to find out, a gentleman that flew with me as a radio operator lived in New Haven.
Okay.
So after we came back, I hooked up with Lou and spent, every time I get a chance, I'd run down to New Haven, see how he was doing.
That's great.
And
Oh, friendships are forever.
oh yeah,
Friendships,
right.
yes.
You know, and they were from all over the country.
Yeah.
And it was just, to me, it was something that I'm happy I went, happy that I did what I did. And I feel very honored that, you know, that I'm being honored as one of how many veterans are left. And we're losing them fast.
That's right. And you have a story to tell, and I'm hearing it.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about a typical flight. I mean, you had an assignment, I think you said you were a flight engineer. Is
Yeah.
that always what you were? Or
Oh, yeah.
did you, okay.
Yeah, I was.
Tell me what a typical flight would be with a flight engineer.
When you're flying, there isn't much that a flight engineer can do. I mean, I had a desk, and
You're just behind it.
right behind the pilot and the co-pilot.
Okay.
Now, if the co-pilot has got to go back and use the latrine in the back of the ship, I go up and sit on in the right seat. Or if it was a pilot, I'd sit in the left seat.
But you never leave a seat empty, right? Isn't that?
No, we never did.
Yeah.
And then I remember. I'm trying to think what the fellow's name was. He was, well, I know Dick Ernie was the pilot. He was a warrant officer, a great guy, and the co-pilot. I wish I could remember his name. We were flying into not Finchhaven, Sanzapur, and then we got landing instructions. And here's this co-pilot said, "Do we turn left here? Do we turn left here?" And he used to say it. But and that's, you know, there were a lot of funny times, and most of the pilots were good. Captain Fitzgerald, Captain Al Peterson, Phil Graff. I spent a lot of time in the air with Phil Graff. And I flew with the old man 2 or 3 trips, and
Who would that be?
the commanding officer of the squadron.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a bird colonel, West Point graduate. I think he was 24, 25. Great guy.
Yeah.
You'd see him walking down the line. If you didn't know who it was, none of the officers ever wore it when they were down around the aircraft. Working on, and the fellows who were working on them never wore insignia. So if you didn't know, you just say, hi, hi, how are you? And they answered you right back. So, and most of the pilots, in fact, just about all the pilots, didn't want to be called captain or lieutenant. They wanted to be called by their first name. And it worked out well, and the guys that I flew with, this can remind me a great deal of these fellows that I flew with. One guy, Odell Williams from Virginia, he was funny, typical Southerner, and a real nice guy, and he was a comedian, and I remember. He came back one time from Australia, and he got a letter from a girl in Australia. He was all upset. I said, "What's the matter, Willie?" He said, "This gal that I shacked up with in Australia, she's pregnant." And I said, "So?" "Well, maybe I'm the father." I says, "Hey, don't worry about it. If you're going to Australia and you can get a gal that easy, they've got more people to do it with than you have to worry about." So that sort of quieted them down. But no, they.
Hold this up, Bill. This is a picture of what.
This is
47.
This is the Goni bird.
Right.
And this group is
Turn that around.
this troop carrier group, the 374th.
Perfect.
The 374th of which the 6th, the 21st, 22nd, and 33rd Squadrons were a part of.
Okay.
And
that's a C-47.
that's a C-47.
That you guys are all
Right. This probably is a C-47 right from the factory.
Yeah.
The first ship I had was an old DC-3
Three. Yeah.
from Delta Airlines.
Yeah.
And but to me, that's the best airplane he ever flew.
Yeah.
Great aircraft. You could always depend on them.
They built 10,000.
Oh, they sure did.
No,
And look what they did in Europe.
Yeah.
And they dropped all those paratroopers at D-Day. Holy
Yeah.
smokes.
Right.
So,
How about, let me see, I asked you about the aircraft. Did they, so the flight engineer's duties were pretty much to
pretty much
pay attention to the engines?
Yeah, you listen, you got to the point, you could tell when an engine was functioning the way it should be.
Yeah.
It was just a steady drone. And if something did happen to go haywire, you shut the engine down, you set the prop so that the prop would be perfectly straight. You'd feather, what they call feathering.
Right.
Whatever engine was still operating, that thing would fly as long as you had to.
On one
On one engine without any problem.
Okay. Yeah.
You just set the trim, and there's various things you can do, and
Yeah.
most of the guys knew exactly what to do.
Now, did that happen?
Yeah, it's happened twice to me.
Yeah.
One time it was right after the 100-hour inspection. A couple of the pilots wanted to get their flight time in for the month. So we would take it up. The doggone right engine caught fire, and we blew it out. Brought the aircraft down. Looked at it the next morning. They hauled it out and right to the junkyard. Didn't even bother working on it.
Right.
So, and then the other time was on the way back from New Guinea, or from Finchhaven, I'm sorry, and it happened. But the pilot was able to restart it. That may have been maybe a little water in the gas. And, when you pre-flight an engine in the morning, there's a little petcock underneath. And you open up the petcock and you let bleed off if there's any water. You bleed it off, then you lock it back up, wire it so that it doesn't open, and that's how you do it.
How many, you remember how many hours you flew, if you had to add up?
Oh.
Days, weeks, times, I don't know, maybe flights isn't a number you remember.
I'd say maybe 210 hours.
Yeah.
All the time I was in the Pacific.
You were flying.
When Phil Graff would fly my ship, I'd always get the right seat. Because we wouldn't even take a co-pilot, and we were going up, say, from Lady to Manila. It would be just the two of us in an aircraft. We'd go up, do what we had to do, and then come back to Lady. And then when we started up, when the Americans went up to Lingayen and came in on the Lingayen invasion,
Yeah.
that's when we left Lady early in the morning, sat right on the water all the way to Lingayen, came in from the ocean, landed. The Japs have one end of the strip, we had the other end.
Tell me about
And you just shut the left engine all the way back, not off, but just shut it out so she'd idle. Because the minute that ship was unloaded, you were in the air.
Yeah.
And,
Now, how long would that take you?
probably turned around, run maybe 5-6 hours. Maybe, it all depends.
So whatever you were hauling. You mean,
Yeah.
So they unload the plane and then you get out
We
of
were
it.
out of there. And
So, how big was the island? I mean, or how far away were the Japanese?
well, as you know, when we got into Lingayen, they're on one end of the strip,
Yeah,
and we're on the other. We're invading,
yeah,
and the Japs are already in, dug in and all. And then, but the Americans, they had the bombers and everything, and the fighters, and they chased them all the way down. And when they took Manila, we went into Manila right after the Americans had taken it and really owned it. And whatever supplies we had, we'd go into Nichols Field or Nielsen Field, whichever. Or sometimes you went into Clark Field. And Clark was a huge air base.
yeah.
Holy smoke. But Nielsen and Nichols, right in down Tabadilla.
Okay.
And
Now you mentioned you've got 5 battle stars. Tell me a little bit about those, Bill.
when we were went into Lady, that was the Asian Pacific combat area.
Yeah.
They figured that whole thing was. Now the odd thing about it, when I was at Leyte Gulf, my cousin Bob Mitchell, who lived up on the hill, and we lived at the bottom of the hill in Waterbury.
Waterbury, yeah.
He was with Task Force 58
Yeah.
as a cook.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't know it until I got a letter from my dad and mom telling me that this is where he was.
Yeah.
And I thought, boy, if I'd known, maybe I might have been able to see him.
Sure.
But, I missed him. But every place that we went in with whatever we were carrying, if it was right in the middle of a battle or just when the battle was winding down, you would get a battle star.
Uh-huh.
So I have 5 of them,
Wow.
but there's only one showing in this book, and that's because of the 5. Then they give you a bronze to indicate that you have 5.
Okay.
And I don't know whether I'm eligible for any other medals. I never even pursued it.
Yeah.
I got the ribbon. That's all I ever cared about.
Wow.
But
You did your job, and you're happy you did.
yeah, I have never regretted
Yeah.
that I ever went into service. Never regretted the areas that I was sent to because of the fellows that I was with. We got along so well, and we had a cook in our squadron. He could make the best scrambled eggs out of powdered eggs you ever tasted.
Yeah.
And there were some comical things. Danny Frederick from Maryland, every once in a while, maybe once every couple of months, he'd sneak up to the mess hall at night, pick up the big heavy cans of peaches like this,
Yeah.
and cherries and all, and then you'd waited there and the cook in charge would scream, "That SOB is at it again!" And then you'd smell it. He'd get the still going in the motor pool and so made his own booze, and I tell you. And one night we were at a movie, and we heard this aircraft, and this is when we were at Biak. We heard this aircraft come in, and he was identified as a friend. The son of a gun was a Jap bomber.
No kidding. Yeah.
He got in over the strip, got landing instructions. All of a sudden, you heard the engines go into high gear. He pulled up the landing gear and laid a strip of bombs right down the middle of the runway.
My God.
And everybody dove for whatever place you could find.
Yeah.
And a couple of guys landed in the open latrine, but gee.
Now, where were you at in August of '45 when the decision was made to
Okinawa.
drop the bomb?
We had gone into Okinawa, and I was on my way home to the Philippines, and that's when we heard that Colonel Tibbets had dropped the A-bomb, and we knew it wasn't too long after that that the war was over. And I went back to BIAC, and I was there, I guess, a week or two when they finally called. The night the war ended, holy smokes.
Yeah.
They opened up the NCO club and the officers club. And that's just 2:30 in the morning. You couldn't find a sober pilot for 3 days.
That's how it should.
Oh boy.
That's right.
Then we started north again.
Yeah.
Went from Biak to the Philippines to Okinawa to Tokyo, Japan.
You went into Tokyo.
We went into, actually where we were was at Atsugi. That was the west point of the air for the Japanese. And from there, I flew one trip to Korea with mail and other supplies. The first night, the one night in Korea, I thought I was going to die. It was so cold. Oh, it was brutal.
Yeah.
And we came back to Atsugi, and then we would make, daily trips up north, northern Hokkaido, and areas of that, up in that area. And
Now, what time of the year was this? The war ended in August, so you were still in the service then.
Yeah.
Finish up your...
I was not. In fact, they wouldn't even let me fly when we were at Sugi. They grounded me because I had enough points to come home.
Okay.
And next thing I know, I'm on my way to Manila to be returned to the States. And for the first 4 days, I didn't care if I ever saw the United States.
Yeah.
Oh boy, we went through the Straits of, I'm trying to think now what the name of it was, but was it rough? Oh, I mean, that ship was going up and down and rolling, and
What were you on, you remember?
it was a Navy,
Okay.
but I don't remember what it was, but then after that, it quieted down, and I enjoyed the trip home.
Yeah, once you get over the
Yeah,
seasickness. That's not pleasant.
No, and we landed at L.A., and from L.A. we flew to Columbus, Ohio, via American Airlines, and from Columbus to Newark. And we flew into Newark. The pilots came on over the intercom and said, "We don't know what we're going to find because there's ice and snow." And well, he got her down and did a great job. And then from there, I was sent to Fort Devens by train. I was only up at Devens a week,
Yeah.
and then I came home.
Yeah, I guess that was where they
Yeah, that was,
disembarked.
yep.
My dad was
Yeah.
discharged from Devens. That was, yeah.
But as I say, I never have regretted,
Yeah.
because there's areas that, like Melbourne, Australia, I got to Brisbane, and I looked up, I thought I had a cousin in Brisbane. It was related to my grandfather, Bill Jenkins, and I never did find him. This gentleman that was related to my grandfather. But again, the people in Brisbane were so great, wonderful people. Sure, they get into scraps and scrapes. And, we used to send from Biak. The food was terrible when we first got there.
Yeah.
God, you wouldn't even feed it to your dog. And somebody got the idea, well, we got this B-25 is in the squadron. It was stripped. We can use that for one. So they came up with the solution. Every man in the squadron, chipped in 15 guilders a month.
Yeah.
And that money would then go towards these two aircraft going to Australia. One went for food, the other went for booze. And we always told the pilot, this B-25, you make doggone sure you get back here, you know.
So what was it like at home now? You're back home, and you're going to get back to a normal if you can.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I wanted to go back to college, and I applied to University of Connecticut. I was turned down. I guess supposedly because my grades weren't good enough in high school. But I did apply to a junior college down in Bridgeport, which eventually became the University of Bridgeport. So I stayed down there 2 years, and then the governor of the state of Connecticut declared Bridgeport a 4-year institution. And my plan was originally to go to junior college for 2 years, transfer to Wharton School of Finance at the University of Pennsylvania. But when they made it a 4-year school, I decided, well, I'm here. I'll finish up and get my degree from Bridgeport University, which I did, and I graduated in 1950. And whenever anybody in the family speaks about, well, I graduated in such and such, I can always say, you're nothing but a kid. I graduated before you were even born, you know. And but there was a lot of great times. Yeah. There really was. I've never regretted going, and I keep repeating that because I mean it. I just never have ever regretted going into the service.
Right. Now, how about getting married, settling down, starting a family? That all come along?
Yeah, when I was I met a girl through my cousin Carol Moore. This girl lived in Watertown, as my cousin Carol did. I met her and started to go out, and the next thing we know, I asked her to marry me, which she did, and I was married to her for 20 years, but she had some real problems. Yeah. So I laughed. I came home from work one night and she said, I don't want to live with you anymore. I said, fine.
Oh, surprise, yeah.
Yeah, she said, you don't seem to be upset. I said, no. And so she got the divorce. She flew to Mexico, got the divorce. Yeah. And then 5 years after the divorce, I was working for a commercial ambulance service in Wolcott, Connecticut, and I was introduced to this young lady,
Susan,
and we just hit it off, and it was a blind date. The first night and this was on New Year's, and the fellow that I was in business with, his significant other called Sue and said that I would like to meet. I didn't even know the girl. So eventually she agreed, and we had a good time. And a week later I invited her to have dinner with Monero Steakhouse down in Greenwich, Connecticut. Yeah. And we were sitting at the table, and she ordered a vodka martini, and at that time I was drinking Black Russians. And Sue said to me, would you mind pouring the vodka into my glass? I said, I'm very happy to. My glass was here with the stick.
Yeah.
I reached over it. The stick caught my jacket. I got Black Russia all over me,
Yeah.
the table, her, the gentleman to my right, the gentleman to my left. What a mess.
How suave.
Oh,
How
boy.
suave, Bill.
She says, well, that's a great way to introduce me. I said, I guess it is. I have 3 children by my first wife. My son Stephen lives in Watertown, and he works for Eastern Water Development down here in Oxford. I have a daughter who lives in New Hampshire. Another daughter lives in Prospect. Then my stepdaughter lives in Pleasanton, California, and she's the one that we're going to be going out. We'll live in what they call Livermore, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Livermore laboratories.
It sounds.
They did quite a bit of work for the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
And they're still doing a lot of government work
Yeah.
out there. They're still very active. So that's where we're going to be. We will be. And basically looking forward to it.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
And
Now, did you keep in touch with your
unfortunately,
force
no.
guys? Yeah. Okay.
No. I don't know why I did.
Yeah.
I really don't know why I didn't.
Well.
But you know, it just. Well, I always said, well, I know Louis lives in New Haven, so I have him to talk to. But the other fellows all over the country, I didn't have their addresses or anything of that nature, and that's my fault probably. Because as I said before, there were some great guys in that squadron. I can remember Eddie Hessler from Hastings, Nebraska. He could talk more like a better Australian than the Australians could. And, it was a lot of camaraderie.
It must have been, because you
Yeah.
remembered every one of their names.
Yeah,
and where
they,
they're from. So
yeah.
that certainly says something about your relationship.
Yeah, it worked out very well. Worked out very well.
Well, now the last time we talked, you and Susan told me about something called the American Warrior Honor Flight, and I'd like you to tell us a little bit about that, Bill.
I'm a Shriner.
Okay.
And in this, I get a magazine about every month or two from the Shriners, and it advertised this American Warriors group based in Norwich. And Sue looked at it and she said, would you be interested? And I said, yeah. I said, I'd love to see what that's all about.
Sure.
So she called the fellow.
Yeah, I had his name.
I don't remember.
Down someplace.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
And he told us that there was going to be, well, he put my name down,
Yeah.
and Sue put her name down, being a nurse, and he said, oh, that's great. Well, we didn't hear, and finally Sue called, and she talked to him again, and he said, let me check. And he looked on the list, and oh yeah, he's been okayed. He'll be on the first flight. Well, Sue said, well, I sent my application in too, and I'm a nurse. And he said, let me look around. And sure enough, he found it. Yeah, you're a nurse, you're on it.
Okay. His
So-
name's Chris K2 or
Yes,
K2? Is
Yeah.
that how it's pronounced?
I think so.
Chris K2.
Yeah,
Yes. Okay. So
yeah.
he's
So
he's
Chris,
the-
he was the one
Yeah.
we would periodically get information from Chris, and this one time it was the first meeting in Norwich, and down we went, Sue and I both, And it was in the VFW hall, and we parked the car, and she went in to look around and to find out some information. And the gentleman, the person she talked to, said, "Why don't you drive the car around and go in through the front door, which is up on another level?" So this is what Sue did, and we went in, and she had come. She went in, and then she came back and she said, "This is where it's going to be held." I said, "Fine." So I was sitting in my wheelchair, and there was a ramp, and I got up and got into this huge room, and there was a woman working in the kitchen, getting snacks ready. So Sue asked the gal if she could help, and the girl said, "Yeah, absolutely." So Sue did that, and I'm sitting in this hall, and I'm looking around. The next thing I know, I've seen these gentlemen coming in, some walking slowly, some with a limp, some with canes, some with a walker, others in a wheelchair, and I thought, gee, these guys are old. Then all of a sudden it dawned on me, wait a minute, you're no spring chicken yourself, you know. So, and that was the first meeting. And they told us when the flight was going to be and what we had to do. We had to be at Windsor Locks at 6:30 in the morning. Well, we got there and went through security, which to me was a nothing. But we got in and got on board, and we were getting ready to go, and the first thing I know, they're handing out bags of fruit. There was an apple, there was crackers, there was like a little muffin, you know, which I thought was very nice, at least.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And this pilot came on, we were starting to taxi down towards the bottom of the runway. Pilot comes on and he said, "I am Captain so-and-so." And he said, "I feel very honored to be your flight pilot today." He said, "It's a particular honor to me to take you veterans." And he said, "This aircraft is a brand new one. It's only the second flight that it has made. We flew to, and going down the taxi strip, he said, 'Now you fellas on the right, you look out the window. You gentlemen on the left, you look out the window.' We went in between two fire department tankers, and they formed an arch with the water.
Yeah.
And we went through that, got down the end, turned around, got clearance for takeoff, 52 minutes to Washington.
Yeah.
And we got to Washington, got out of the aircraft, waited for everybody to assemble, and then we started and went through the terminal. Here are people, must have been 50, 60 people, waving flags, clapping, you know.
Yeah.
Come to find out they were workers for the airline, and you know, people that just generally cared about the veterans. And they took us on buses. There were three buses. There was Omaha, Normandy, and Utah. I was in the Normandy bus.
Okay.
Took us to the
Appropriately named buses. Yeah.
they took us to the memorial.
Yeah.
I walked into that memorial and I cried.
Yeah. Had you been to Washington before?
Oh yeah, years ago,
What?
but never. And when I was after I graduated, it was from high school.
Yeah.
I had an aunt that lived in Silver Spring,
Okay.
Maryland,
Yeah.
and she was a housekeeper for a Mr. Willis Monty, who was a member of the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Yeah.
And my Aunt Ada would say to me, well, why don't you ride in with Mr. Monty? He can let you off whenever you go. You can go and do whatever you want to do right in Washington, go to all these buildings and all that. He'll pick you up at night and bring you home.
Yeah.
Well, I was down there for a week. Then my mom and dad came down, and then we went on to West Virginia to school. But that memorial just, you know, it blows your mind.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, it's like
This is for all those guys with the white hair that you were talking about.
You
Yeah,
got it.
very special.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And they didn't miss a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the way it's laid out, and the thing that got was the battle stars. That big area where all the 500 battle stars are, and each one don't denotes one that didn't come back.
Oh, yeah.
But it's and I tell everyone that I know, if you ever get a chance, go, because it's magnificent, and you can thank Senator Bob Dole.
Yeah.
Well, he fought for that. Oh, did he fight for it? And it.
And what else did you see down there during the
Then, well, we went to. We.
Because you had veterans from not
This,
just World War II, but you had
there may have been some
yeah,
from World War One,
yeah,
but right after we left the memorial, we were taken over to two huge tents, and Arby's furnished a lunch for us.
oh how nice,
Holy smokes, the sandwiches that thick,
yeah,
and it was very good, and it was after lunch they piled us back on or put us on a bus, and we went to the various memorials. We got to Iwo Jima Memorial, and the bus driver stopped and he said, now, look out the window and you look at that flagpole.
Yeah.
And he said, and that flagpole is on an angle. I'm going to drive around this monument. I want you to keep your eye on that flagpole. By golly, he did, and you could see it. Go from an angle, right, perfectly perpendicular.
straighten out, yeah,
Doggonest thing I ever saw in my life. It's an optical illusion,
yeah.
but whoever designed that, I mean, you could see the muscles in their face and their eyes, and
Oh, that's pretty impressive.
it's
yeah.
magnificent. Good grief! And then they took us to Ambassadors Row, where all of these ambassadors from all over the world, have the embassies.
Yeah.
And we went up and down the embassies. And then by that time, it was time to head back towards the airport.
Okay.
And going back, we had about an hour. And the gentleman that was on there, but in fact, it was, the director,
Chris?
said to the bus driver, is there any other place we can go? He says, I can take you to the JFK building. And he said, fellas can go in and use the John or look around or no. I didn't go in, but Sue went in. She said that building was absolutely incredible. Theaters off of the main halls.
Yeah.
It's quite a setup. And when we got back, it was 46 minutes from Washington to Bradley, and when we got off, same thing. People there waving flags, and it's just a tremendous experience.
There were about 100 of you, right? Is that
98.
98?
There were supposed to be 100, but
Yeah.
two of the fellows couldn't go. But we've sent donations, or sent a donation so that other fellows can go,
That's wonderful.
and we'll continue to do it.
Yeah.
Even though we're probably going to be in California, I still want to send a donation
I
to
saw
Chris.
the list of donors, and I saw your name, Susan, and I thought that was
Yeah,
pretty special. And you're right, other folks should
Yeah,
have that
yeah,
opportunity.
right.
What a nice thing. I hope that those flights, American Warrior Honor flights, continue.
I do too.
You know,
I do
that's,
too.
That's how it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, where are we here, Bill? I guess maybe we could talk about some closing words here.
Well, as I say, it's in some ways I enjoyed myself being overseas in the Pacific. When I was at VIAC, going off the end of the airstrip and going to buck naked and going swimming on New Year's Day. That was one of the weird things, and it just if I was younger, I would like to go back. I'd love to see Tokyo and Manila. BIAC, I know, is a refueling station for KLM Airlines, and I don't know, what's it, Hollandia or Finchhaven? Finchhaven in New Guinea. I think we lost 4 aircraft all the time we were there. Don't to this day know what happened. I can remember a young fellow I met when I was in Texas by the name of Keith Peters. Lived in way out in the Midwest. His dad had an excellent job with Cummins Diesel. And Pete and I got to be very, very very good friends. And Pete said to me one day, he said, "What are you going to do when this is over, Bill?" And I says, "Probably go back to school." He said, "I'll tell you what, why don't we go and enroll at the University of Washington, get our degrees, and see if we can get a job with Cummins Diesel?" I said, "Boy, that sounds great." Well, unfortunately, Pete never left New Guinea. He went down somewhere. I have no idea what. I had bought a jacket, a flight jacket, a leather flight jacket, from one of the fellows who was going home. And I knew that there was a guy in the 6th Squadron that was an artist. And I wanted him to paint a decal on the back of my jacket.
Yeah, guys did that, yes, yeah.
Sent the jacket down on one of our trips to, sent it to Hollandia, where the 6th was based. Never got it. Didn't hear from Pete for maybe 3 or 4 months. I thought, this is strange. And one of their, should be it. Came up to BIAC on a resupply. And I asked one of the fellows on board, "Is Keith Peters still alive?" And they said, "No, he was killed. The aircraft went down in the Owen Stanleys." They don't know why or anything. So I wrote a letter to his mom and dad.
Oh, that's nice, yeah.
And just to let them know that I had heard. It was quite a while after his death, and I told him that what plans we had, but I've never heard anything from them. So it's just one of those things.
Right. So there was some sadness as well. With the experience, but but you guys went. You did your job. You did it well, and
Sure did.
and I guess I'm I'm pleased, I'm honored, and it's very special to interview you, Bill.
Well, thank you.
With that, I want to thank you and Susan for your hospitality and
Yeah, this is,
for-
well, we're at,
there you go. Yes.
yeah, this is the Goonie Bird,
A little higher. Yeah.
or the Biscuit Bomber.
Yeah.
Call it what you will.
There you go.
The best doggone aircraft that was ever, the Air Force ever, the Air Corps
And you-
ever had in the Pacific.
And you know what you're talking
You
about. when
betcha.
Say that.
Yeah.
Yes.
This area here,
The bubble up there, the blister. Yeah.
one squadron took the bubble out of there and mounted twin 50 machine guns in
Oh
it.
really? Oh really?
I mean, that's the
They
American,
don't show that
that's the
part.
American nut,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But my ship was, my original aircraft was W531,
Yeah.
and that was the call letters.
That was painted on the fuselage, right?
Yeah, right above the, right after the sliding windows on the
Okay.
left
Does
cockpit.
that one have numbers on it there?
No, but it has
Okay, yeah. it has.
some insignia.
Okay,
But it was right here,
yeah.
that panel right there.
U-51.
Yeah,
You remember what you flew on several though, didn't you? You said.
that was, let's see, that's the only one I remember because it was a weird color.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that was the one that had a lot of
Oh,
touch-up work.
we did it ever, was
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great aircraft.
Well, it's nice to hear firsthand what it's like flying on a Goonie Bird, a
Oh,
C-47.
yeah.
During a time when you guys were moving the equipment, troops, and all the necessary things to keep the war effort going.
Yeah, we,
So again, I thank you,
thank you.
and the Veterans History Project thanks you.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, William. Thanks.